Jonathan Lemire, the Supreme Court case came out later on Friday. Talking about a weighty Friday news dump, that was pretty extraordinary. I just want to read apart from this Supreme Court decision again, a 7-2 ruling. In their order, the justices said that the stakes facing the detainees are, quote, particularly weighting, citing the case of a Maryland man, Kilmore Armando Abrego Garcia, who was, quote, deported in error to El Salvador in March. Under such circumstances, the justices wrote, quote, notice roughly 24 hours before removal, devoid of information about how to exercise due process rights to contest that removal surely does not pass muster. The emphasis mine because it certainly points to where this conservative Supreme Court is going to be going in the future.
Yeah, first of all, you're right about the Friday news dump. Two major economic stories that we'll also get to later in the show about Moody's downgrading the U.S. credit and terrible consumer sentiment numbers. But this one from the Supreme Court should not be overlooked. It's a pretty stunning rebuke here and foreshadows, as you say, where this court may go when more of these cases, if they do indeed become before it. I mean, the White House has continued to move apace. They continue to talk tough on this issue. You know, Joe, we've talked more times than I can count about how the Trump White House's reflex is when they want to change the headlines, they go back to immigration. We should expect to hear more from the president on this in the days ahead. I am told that at least right now, they're going to continue the course. Let's bring in NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley. Julia, let's just a lot to ground to cover with you, but let's just start there with how you're reading of what we heard Friday and what that means for what the administration has been doing.
You know, it really just tees up this, even more of this clash that we've already seen between the Trump administration and courts. Mostly starting with lower courts, people like Judge Boasberg, like Paula Zennis in Maryland, who is overseeing the Abrego Garcia case. Now they have the Supreme Court, which has a majority conservative bench. And they are saying here that notice of roughly 24 hours before removal is with devoid of information about how their due process worked, basically surely does not pass muster. In other words, the Supreme Court is pointing at the Trump administration saying, you didn't follow our order. Because going back to last month, the Supreme Court said before you deport these Venezuelan men. This was the second batch they were trying to deport without due process under the Alien Enemies Act. They said before you deport them, they need due process. And they showed up before a judge in an emergency hearing and said they've had due process. They had enough time to file a habeas petition. Now the Supreme Court is saying 24 hours does not count as due process and isn't enough time. I also have to bring us back to that date because something really crucial happened in that time period. We have some evidence based on our NBC News crew that was on the ground that they actually tried to deport many of these men just within hours of notice. 24 hours, way overblowing what that would have been. There were buses that left during this emergency hearing. Our NBC News crew saw them turn around. That would have been at the exact same time the Justice Department lawyer had to call someone in the administration, we don't know who, to verify that these people had been given the right to file habeas and that they weren't being deported without due process. They did a U-turn and came back. So right while we're obviously seeing this clash legally, on the ground what this has looked like is a lot of chaos, a lot of fear, and really setting the Trump administration up in this place. You're talking about the rhetoric that we might hear more of in the coming days, where they can now say that this is a fight that they're willing to take on. But it's getting harder when you have opinions like this coming from the Supreme Court.
And also, what does this mean for? Is there any anything in there about the men who are in this prison and the men in David Noriega's amazing report?
That was an amazing report by David, and really just gets to the fact that there are so many people who were sent to this prison, again, without due process. They didn't have a chance to defend themselves. And in fact, that's why a circuit judge said that these people really got worse treatment than Nazis, that Nazis could defend that they weren't part of the Nazi party before they may have been subjected to the Alien Enemies Act and World War II. And so what happens to the men there now? That now falls back down to Judge Boasberg in D.C., and we're hoping to get news on that this week as well.
Okay.
I just wanted to layer in the parallel conversation that we've been having when I've seen you guys, which is this fact pattern of there is a guy identified by tattoos, and every expert on Tren de Aragua says, including those I've talked to in my own reporting, they say this is, again, as David pointed out, this is not a marker. This is not actually identity. It's just not a way of identifying the bad guys that you think. And then you have, in the case of Jersey Reyes Barrios, the other soccer player that I reported on, who has not talked to his family, has disappeared in a very identical way, including with a statement from Tricia McLaughlin, who said the exact, they're just running the same playbook. And so the question I have is, how much of this is just to cover this notion that actually the total number of deportations actually isn't as high as they have been in the past, because these human interest stories seem to be something they welcome even as much as they are tragic contradictions of the rule of law?
Well, I think that's exactly why we're going to hear more and more about CCOT. We saw the same thing with Guantanamo. That didn't work out. They turned to CCOT. When the numbers don't bear out, when the numbers of deportations are not the mass deportations that Trump ran on, or that was the word,
yes.
Mass. We're not seeing anything in mass. We're not even seeing, based on the data that we've had so far, to show that there are more people deported by ICE under this administration as the previous one. And so instead, there's this shock and awe that they can deliver through things like CCOT. And so when CCOT gets stopped by the court, then we start to turn to these stories. And of course, they've been able to do that as well with more information they're giving on Abrego Garcia. But at the end of the day, why are we having these discussions about people's tattoos, what they may have done and their marriages, when that should be before a court, which is exactly what the Supreme Court is saying?
Patty.
Mike, when Abrego Garcia was in the headlines every single day, the understanding from all of our reporting from the White House was that they were happy with this situation. They liked it being there. Is there some feeling that this narrative is being replaced by the narrative that actually they haven't reached the number of deportations that they want? People are not self-deporting because they don't think it's safe to do so. What's your latest understanding from the White House on the immigration story?
Yeah, as I talk to people behind the scenes, they remain very confident about this, both the thinking behind it, and they believe it's net popular in the country. But they're running into roadblocks. One, like clearly mistakes are being made. And second, the lead story of today's New York Times talking about the fact that the one through line through all these federal court decisions about this is that these people do have due process rights. And the very minimum should be that they have the chance to challenge their deportations. So that is going to be a hurdle to what the administration is trying to do. I can tell you what they say is we can't wait, and they're going to continue to move these cases quickly. And you saw Stephen Miller, one of the most trusted aides to President Trump, saying that they may pull back on habeas corpus, one of the most important rights for people. So the White House is keeping their foot on the gas.
All right, co-founder of Axios, Mike Allen, thank you. And thank you for the Bear Bryant tie. It is greatly appreciated, my man.
Nice touch.
Never quit, roll tide.
Roll Tide. Roll Tide. You know, Mika, going back to Mike's reporting out of the White House, it's what I'm hearing, and also, of course, what John Lemire is hearing. Despite the fact that they are upside down in the polls on the Abrego Garcia case, despite the fact that some of these actions that they've taken have actually made the president in a spate of polls upside down, even on immigration, which is his most popular issue, his go-to issue. Like Mike said, the White House still has, still has foot on the gas, and they're just simply, again, they said they were going to do this at the beginning. It's what they're still doing, and that is testing the boundaries of presidential power. And what they're finding is that not only the Supreme Court, other lower courts are pushing back in a very strong, aggressive way. And you're also seeing voters. You saw an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal talk about this, that, sometimes politicians and people in the media have this elitist viewpoint of things like due process. And yes, we understand it, but the teeming masses do not. That is not the case. As William Galston wrote in the Wall Street Journal last week, most Americans very much understand the concept of due process, and they don't believe it's being followed. And that is causing a drag on the president's approval rating when it comes to immigration in a lot of these polls. But again, with all of that said, the White House still believes this is their winning issue, and they're going to still move forward on it as aggressively as they can.
NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley, thank you so much for your reporting this morning.